Old wisdom, young energy. A long time ago, in a quiet and peaceful kingdom, surrounded by hills and rivers, there lived a young king. He had just taken over the throne after his father passed away, and like most young people, he thought he knew everything. This king, barely in his 20s, was full of energy and ideas. He believed in strength, speed, and modern ways of doing things. And he thought the kingdom should be run by young, strong people, just like him. One day, during a grand meeting in the palace, the king stood up and said something that shocked everyone. "Young men build nations. Old people just sit around doing nothing. They are weak, tired, and they eat more than they work. They've lived their life. Now they are just a burden. We must let them go." His courtiers, all young and eager to please the king, nodded quickly. No one had the courage to disagree. So, the king passed a cruel and heartbreaking law. Every person above the age of 60 shall be put to death. Within days, soldiers were sent across the kingdom. Families cried, begged, and tried to hide their elders. But the law was the law. One by one, the elderly were taken away. But not everyone obeyed. In a small village on the edge of the kingdom lived a young man named Ayan. He was a simple farmer, kind-hearted and hard-working. More than anything, he loved his father. Ayan's father, Hari, had just turned 62. He had silver hair, gentle eyes, and a calm wisdom in his voice. Ayan couldn't imagine life without him. When the soldiers arrived in their village, Ayan made a decision. He quietly dug a hidden cellar beneath his home and carefully helped his father into it. He covered the entrance with old rugs and grains, making sure no one would ever find it. "Stay quiet, Dad," Ayan whispered. "The world has gone mad, but I won't let them take you." And so, while the rest of the kingdom mourned their loss, Hari lived silently underground, and Ayan brought him food and water every night, sitting by his side for hours. Years passed. The kingdom, once blooming with life, began to wither. A terrible drought hit the land. The skies refused to rain, the rivers dried up, and the crops turned to dust. People were hungry. Children cried for food. Animals died. The kingdom's storehouses, once filled with wheat and rice, were now empty. Farmers had no seeds left to plant. The land had nothing to offer, and hope was fading fast. The king called for meetings. His ministers argued, shouted, and blamed one another. But no one had a solution. No one knew what to do. Meanwhile, in the village, Ayan watched the land dry and crack. His own fields were empty. The last sack of grain was almost gone. He knew he needed help. That night, he climbed down into the cellar, where his father still lived, hidden from the world. "Dad," Ayan said, sitting beside him, "the kingdom is dying. There's no food left, no seeds, nothing grows. People are starving. What should we do?" Hari listened quietly, eyes half closed, deep in thought. After a moment, he opened them and smiled gently. "Go outside," he said, "and plow the path in front of our house, the one people used to walk on with their harvests. Plow it well and rake it after." Ayan frowned. "But Dad, that's just a path. Nothing grows there." "Do as I say, son. Trust me." The next morning, even though people thought he'd lost his mind, Ayan took his plow and began digging up the path in front of his house. It was hard, dry, dusty work, but he did it. He raked it clean and waited. Days later, the skies darkened, and it rained for the first time in months. And then something strange happened. Tiny green shoots began to pop out of the plowed path. Wheat sprouts, Ayan stared at the ground with his wide eyes. "How is this possible?" he whispered. Neighbors came running. "Look! Look at Ayan's house! His path is growing wheat!" The news spread like wildfire. Soon it reached the palace. The king, curious and confused, summoned Ayan to the court. Ayan stood before the king, nervous and unsure. "Tell me your secret," the king said. "How did wheat grow on a path where nothing was sown?" Ayan hesitated. He knew what would happen if he told the truth. But he also knew the kingdom needed help. "My father told me to do it," Ayan finally said. The court went silent. "Your father?" the king asked, narrowing his eyes. "But all elders were put to death years ago." "I couldn't let mine go," Ayan admitted. "I hid him. I couldn't lose his wisdom." The king sat in silence. After a while, he said, "Bring him to me." The next day, Hari, old and frail, was brought to the court. Everyone stared. Many bowed. It was as if wisdom had entered the palace. The king looked at the old man and asked, "Tell me, how did you know wheat would grow there?" Hari smiled. "Your Majesty, when I was young, we used to carry crops along that path. Some seeds would fall from the sacks and get trampled into the dirt. I remembered that. I knew that if the path was plowed and the rain came, some of those lost seeds would wake up again." The court gasped. The king's face changed. He stood up slowly and said, "I have made a great mistake." He looked around the court, full of young advisors, and realized something that had never occurred to him before. Wisdom doesn't grow with strength, it grows with time. He walked up to Hari and bowed. "Please forgive me," he said. "You have saved my people." From that day on, the law was changed. The kingdom no longer feared old age, they respected it. Elders were welcomed back into families. They were treated like treasure, like walking libraries of life experience. People would visit their elders not just for blessings, but for guidance, for stories, and for lessons. Ayan's name was remembered forever, not just as the boy who saved his father, but as the man who brought wisdom back to the kingdom. And Hari, well, he lived out his final years, not in hiding, but in honor, sitting under a tree every evening. Children gathered around him, listening to tales of the past. The moral of the story is that old people aren't just old. They are living books, full of experiences, memories, and lessons that no school can teach. Their words may be slow, but their minds are rich. In times of trouble, it's their advice that can light the way. We must respect, love, and care for our elders. Make them feel needed. Make them feel heard. Because in their presence, we don't just find comfort, we find answers.